Hi everyone, welcome to our channel Health and Wellness. So today's topic is midlife crisis. So I'm sure you would have at least heard about this if you have, just hit that age mark, maybe something around between 30s. If you're in early 30s, then most likely you would have heard about this, or some of you might have experienced this. Now, what is exactly midlife crisis? So, if you come closer to that age around 30 mark, or you just crossed 30, then probably you would have seen a sudden change, coming to your life, maybe because of mostly because of external circumstances, right? So let's say you have to get married, right? Suddenly your parents start talking about you got to get married if you're not married yet, or if you're married, maybe let's say it's time to take on further responsibilities. Maybe you take on children. Maybe your parents ask, probably you should buy a home, or stuff like that. There are things which change, or your parents might be getting old, so you should start thinking about those things. So at certain time of a certain frame of time, a lot of things happen at a very small frame of time, right? Or even let's say from a career perspective, right? I mean, let's say you worked for the last 10 years and suddenly you realize, does it really excites you anymore? Are you really passionate about it? Because somehow you probably lead half of your life, so to speak. I mean, of course, you might be living 100 years, but I'm just saying, probably you have led a really good half of your life. So then now you think everything which you thought will excite you might not, right? I mean, maybe you are when you're in teenage, you had a loving relationship, and then eventually that relationship is bothering you now. Maybe you want to get out of that relationship. Maybe everything which you think excites you 5 or 7 years before, now everything is falling apart. Suddenly your perspective changes because people do change, and midlife is something you start looking back as well. As much as you look forward, you also look back, right? So that happens, right? Suddenly kind of a lot of responsibilities comes to you as well. I mean, this is all possible. Now I'm not saying that that's always bad. Something people changes for good, when these things comes, like they step up and they think, now I have to be more responsible and I have to take my decisions more carefully, so that might be good for many, but many people cannot take that extra responsibility, or that cannot deal with that sudden change of situation or change of mindset altogether, so they might go in depression. So in today's vlog with my wife, and subsequently I'll discuss more on midlife crisis, and I'll also discuss how you can probably, I won't say completely avoid it, maybe how you can deal with it. So yeah, stay tuned. Hi Debrati, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
So I'm good. How was your week?
Ah, nice.
Nice.
Same way.
It's again the same.
Um,
Yeah. So today we're going to discuss more on midlife crisis. So before I ask you, let me give you context of it. So midlife crisis is probably, it's between mid 30s to, I would say, mid 50s or early 60s. So it ranges between, let's say, 20 years, let's say 35 to 55, right? So a lot of things happens in between that period. So what do you think happens actually in this age period? What do you think the
So
things
there are
happen?
lots of responsibility. If we think about the midlife, mid 30, then so after getting married, lots of responsibility, husband responsibility, in-laws responsibility, kids responsibilities are there.
Career
Career is also
is
there,
always there. Yeah.
always there. Career is always there. Before 30 also career, you have to give a priority for
Right,
career.
right.
That time, yeah, if you think about the career, you have to think about salary mainly.
Well, I mean, this is again priority. It might be
Priority.
for you, but I'm just
Yes.
saying it could priority. For some people, maybe a profile, job profile, right? So, why do you think that is called crisis? Midlife crisis. What that crisis is all about?
Crisis means suppose you are thinking, so you imagine that you will build a career like this way, or your family will be like this, and you will have this kind of the responsibility. But you cannot imagine there's lots of responsibility suddenly
Right,
came.
right,
Such
right.
for that, I think it will be when the name is like that crisis.
Right. So, I mean, think of a person's, a period of his life, right? I mean, think of anyone. So let's say you start, you begin your life, and then you grow in your 20s. In 20s, mainly you start experimenting a lot of things. You do, let's say, you higher studies, you go for a job. But mainly, most of the times, mainly for most of the people, they're focused on themselves at that point of time, right? 20s, you think, okay, how can I grow my career? How can I do this? How can I do this? Maybe I want to go into a relationship, everything. But more or less, things are more focused on you at that point of time, early 20s, right? Or 20s, mid 20s. But suddenly, when you go towards 30s, you see the changes coming, and you might not like all of the changes. Some people thrive with those changes. Some people really grow, and they really like to take on that responsibility, and they actually grow further. But then the crisis, if I focus on the crisis thing, it more or less people are not able to take those sudden changes, right? So have you, or do you know anybody have faced this kind of situations? Do you think that you face this midlife?
So nowadays I'm facing little bit, not too much. So when I was in bachelor that time, no, only some responsibilities are related to my parents only, not too much responsibility. So whatever thing I want to do is independent thing only.
Right.
So I did not think about too much. So I am the responsible for all the
Right. So
family members.
so let me rephrase the question. Do you think, let's say your midlife crisis starts from early 40s or late 30s, do you think you know you can face that kind of situation, midlife crisis, or what kind of people usually face that kind of midlife crisis? Because the research says around 23% of the people kind of face this kind of midlife crisis. So what do you think, which kind of people can face this kind of crisis?
Actually, before mid age of 30, if you faced lots of things, lots of situation, if you overcome lots of problems, then you can face those situation also, I suppose.
You mean you can really face those challenges and
Yeah,
yeah,
you can.
deal with them?
But those who did not do such kind of did not face such kind of the thing,
Right.
they cannot do, I think.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what actually I wanted to go more. So let's say, with time, you have to change. Your lifestyle changes, right? Now, again, when you are in 20s, right, you can really, your body is so agile and flexible, right? You can do a lot of things, as in, you can eat a lot of, let's say, junk food and still you can digest. But if you see in your 30s, right, you might not be able to digest those food because your body slowly starts, deteriorating on your mid 30s or late 30s. So, but if you continue the same lifestyle, things will be a huge problem for you. That from lifestyle perspective or career perspective. If you think, let's say in your 20s you like to change so many things, change so many jobs, so you think that kind of career is gonna all suitable, but you always need to evaluate yourself. If you are not able to change your time, right, then things will not be able to you'll not be able to cope with it. Because I mean, you feel that okay, maybe when you're mid 30s or late 30s, oh, okay, I don't know this, or maybe a 20-year-old knows better than me, then you feel that threat of it.
Yes.
Then what you should do? You should actually go and do the change, relearn or learn a new skill, right? Those changes you have to, my lifestyle changes you have to do, right? So people who doesn't ready to take on those changes as and when required, they face a lot of this kind of midlife crisis. So you have to always be aware of your environment or everything which is going around.
What other situation may come in your life?
Right. You should. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to predict. You are not kind of maybe an astrologer to predict.
Right. May
But
come in this
but
kind
then
of
you should
situation may
be
come.
ready for situations. You should do some thought of, and of course some thought of planning is required, right? Of course that plan might change because situation might change, but still I know there's this saying: a bad plan is always better than no plan, right? Because at least you have that thought process in mind that okay, so now the thing is you have to have that options also, right? You plan something and you have to be ready for that thing not happening according to plan. For that also you have to plan. Right. Now this is something which I was recently reading a book from Psychology of Money that talks, it's a great book. If you want to read, that's a great book. But the thought process is you have to be ready for these situations.
You're planning for something, but after some time you can see that this thing is not
Might not
happening.
happen.
You have to plan for some other thing.
Yeah, you have to plan for the thing which might not happen also. So little bit mental preparation. I mean, of course, you cannot make a straight chalk out all the plans because you really don't know. But then you should have some sort of planning that helps you, right? I mean, yeah. So again, from 40 to 60, right? So lifestyle. One thing is I talked about lifestyle, but another thing is a lot of things changes, right? So let's say your your parents get aged or old, right? So now Suddenly you see that your in-laws or your parents suddenly getting sick, and you are not mentally prepared for this, because you might not have thought that part into consideration. Suddenly you realize that, okay, I have to make some arrangement for my parents or my father-in-law, or I mean your close relatives. Let's say you're not prepared for this. Then what is the alternate option? So the alternate option is you get prepared for this, right? So in everything, if you get prepared earlier, right, then things are not so difficult, right? So of course you cannot prepare for everything, but then you should have certain thought process that these things can come in, right? So let's say, I'm just giving an example. Why don't you go and get an insurance, right? Now just say the same topic, right? Let's say your parents or your in-laws are getting aged, right? Suddenly you have to spend a lot of money on any of your parents or so. So the best thing is go and get an insurance, right? That is the preparation phase, where you foresee that that can happen. That might not happen. I pray to God that never happens. But if it happens, if you have that insurance, you suddenly, at least you have some kind of a relief that, okay, I can go to a good doctor and good hospital, and at least get the best treatments for them. And maybe you can actually, tell them what not to eat, what kind of food or what kind of lifestyle they should maintain. So preparation is the key, right? So yeah, I mean, this is something which I want to discuss with you. But do you think anything else, right, in terms of relationships, let's say, in a couple, I mean, if you talk about somebody, let's say in 50s, right? Now they have, let's say they married in 30s and then living for 20 years. And then there's a possibility that relationship might go in a phase of boredom, right? Seeing the same phase or, talking the same thing. So do you think something could be done in that phase of life as well?
And that phase also is something may happen. Suppose so for career or for professional growth, so for that due to the midlife crisis, so for you went somewhere and you are not staying together, you and
Right.
your husband or wife, so you are not staying together. So due to that you are doing because of the crisis, okay, and for due to that crisis, and the relationship may
Not
it will not be continue. Okay, so this is also another thing. So due to overcome one crisis,
another crisis coming. Right, I mean, that's what, right? So probably you got to reinvent everything, right? I mean, maybe you go out places with your partner, spend more time with them. So there are different things you have to evolve. Not only in terms of only career, in terms of relationships, everything you have to continuously evolve, because in relationships also a lot of things change, right? I mean, tomorrow if a kid comes, right, and then the kid also grows, right, because your role as a parent also changes eventually when the kid grows. So you should be prepared for those changes, or at least work on those changes which are going to come. That's how I think in life you deal with those changes, and probably then you can deal with the midlife crisis. I'm not saying completely avoid it. Still, things might surprise you and come to you, but you can at least prepare for whatever is possible. But thank you for your time. I'll discuss in the conclusion a little bit of my more share more ideas on how you can overcome, so to speak, midlife crisis. But thanks a lot. Hi everyone. So you would have heard me and my wife speaking about more on this midlife crisis. So more or less at this situation, people start questioning everything, right? What maybe you start even questioning more spiritual things like what are my purpose in my life, what I'm doing, why I'm doing. That's okay if this kind of question starts coming to you, or even it might be that whatever you have done till now might not be completely satisfying to you. That's okay. But so the two things which I would say is embrace the uncertainty, because we all live in uncertain situations. A lot of things happens in around us that we cannot control. That's one thing. And be prepared for the changes which you might have to make, right? I mean, you have to be comfortable with the changes, right? So so to speak, I mean, the comfort zone would be not to change anything throughout next 10 years or so, but that's not going to be easy, as and when required changes have to be done. So I hope you like the session today, and please know in the comments below what all topics you want me to cover next. So yeah, please do like, share, and subscribe our channel. Yeah, see you next week.